Right now to Republican Senator from Alaska, Dan Sullivan. Senator Sullivan, thank you very much for joining us. I know you just got back from the border. I want to ask you about that. But first, let's pick it up with this question of voting rights. This new law in Georgia, and I know you're not from Georgia, but this is a Republican law, pushed through only by Republicans, actually makes it a crime to give people food and water while they are waiting online to vote. How is something like that justifiable, or do you have problems with that?
Well, look, John, good morning first, and good to be on the show. And, I don't know the details of the law in Georgia. There's been different interpretations by different groups. I do know the details of the laws in Alaska. And when I was Attorney General as a U.S. Senator, I've actually been a strong supporter. I've fought for expansive voting opportunities and rights, particularly for indigenous Alaskans, which is a huge minority group in my state. But I will tell you this, I think it's really important to have this discussion on voting rights, on voting integrity, on access to the ballot. But I think it's also really important, if we're going to be bipartisan in this, is to be able to have this conversation without, when anyone in the Congress, that's us, if we oppose what Speaker Pelosi is putting forward, that it immediately kind of devolves into an accusation that somehow we're supporting Jim Crow-like policies. That is an argument that is frequently coming from our Democratic colleagues, Speaker Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, even the president, and it doesn't help advance the issue. It doesn't help bring unity. It doesn't help bring a bipartisan nature to this. I'll just tell you, in my state, go ahead.
But to be clear, I mean, the law in Georgia, there's no question for interpretation. It makes it a misdemeanor offense to bring, if you are not a poll worker, to bring people food and water while they're waiting in line. And of course, we've seen very long lines in Georgia. And it's not just Georgia. There are efforts, Republican-led efforts, in 43 states to restrict voting in one way or another. Things like restricting the number of drop boxes, making it harder to vote absentee, restricting early voting. Why is it that Republicans seem to believe at this moment in time that they want fewer people to vote, that the right thing to do is to have fewer people voting in our elections?
Well, let me just make a point on my state. In Alaska, a Republican state, we have policies like no excuse absentee ballots, and in essence, automatic voter registration that is much more open to voters in Alaska, just real quick, than many blue states like New York, Delaware, Connecticut. So again, we're not arguing that somehow relative to Alaska, those states are pushing Jim Crow policies. But to your point, normally you were talking about this with Kate, normally when you look at the history in our country, individual voting issues in states is not normally the reason that the impetus to bring major bipartisan national federal legislation unless there is strong bipartisan support for this. And so I think that's the key issue. And right now, H.R. 1, the Pelosi bill from the House, is not only doesn't have support from Republicans, it doesn't have support from many Democrats. So again, the key issue here is to work on this issue in a bipartisan nature. You know, the last major voting reform bill.
No question. And I mean, this effort should be bipartisan, but the efforts we're seeing in the states are entirely partisan. These are coming from Republicans. Before we leave this topic, I just want to play something that Ben Ginsberg, who may be the leading Republican expert on voting laws, lawyer Ben Ginsberg, had to say about these efforts.
I think they are making a mistake anytime you put up barriers to people voting in a democracy, both on the policy grounds, because it's anti the way the country should work, but also politically, because it paints Republicans as truly not wanting people to vote.
So I hear from what you're saying that you're not generally supportive of this idea of restricting. So we can move on to your trip to the border. You just came back from the border with Mexico. Give me a sense of what you saw. How are you seeing the problem down there?
Well, look, John, first, it's heartbreaking and what you see, and it's shocking. And what I've been calling for in a respectful way, like I try to work in a bipartisan way, is for the president, for the vice president to come down and to see what we saw, to hear what we heard from officials who are on the front lines. But I would disagree with Kate on a number of things. There is an open border policy. There is a catch and release policy. And these were changes that the Biden administration instituted. And here's the thing. They were warned. We talked to the officials who briefed the Biden team during the transition. They were warned that if they undertook these major policy changes, getting rid of, for example, the Remain in Mexico policy and making sure that exceptions to Title 42 for families bringing 6-year-olds or under and for unaccompanied minors, if they made those changes, which they did, that they would see this surge. So to me, it was shocking. I think the president and the vice president need to go down there, see what I saw, see what the other Republicans and Democrat congressmen are coming down there. There are things that we can do immediately to address the challenges there. But right now, it is open borders. It's a humanitarian and also health crisis that we need to address.
I mean, the numbers from CBP show that actually the majority of adults crossing the border are being sent back. But before you go, I want to ask you about something we heard from former President Trump, talking about January 6th and about the efforts from the Justice Department to hold those accountable that invaded the Capitol. He said that the members of those rioters are, quote, being persecuted. Is that how you see it? This DOJ effort to charge the people that went into the Capitol? Is that persecution or is that rightful prosecution?
No, look, John, I don't agree with that. Here's the key issue, and it's a really important distinction. The people who committed violence, and I condemn that violence from the minute it started happening, should be fully prosecuted. I think the vast majority of Americans, Democrats and Republicans, fully agree with that. No doubt about it. I've condemned it. The broader issue, though, is if you were at the broader rally, the vast majority of the people at the rally on January 6th did not commit violence, did not storm the Capitol. And I think it's really important. By the way, I had a lot of Alaskans who were there acting peacefully. I think it's really important for people who came to support that rally that they are not tarnished, canceled, their voices shouldn't be silenced. So I think it's two very different issues here.
We're talking about the people that went into the Capitol. Now before you go, the president has also said that he is going to work hard to defeat your colleague, your Republican colleague from Alaska, Lisa Murkowski. In fact, the Alaska Republican Party has actually not only censured her, but called for her to be defeated. I know you have I've always thought, it seems you have a good relationship with Senator Murkowski. What do you make of those efforts by President Trump and your own party leadership in Alaska to see her defeated?
Well, look, when I ran in 2014 and beat a Democrat incumbent and we got the Senate majority back, Senator Murkowski was a strong supporter of mine. And in 2016, I supported her. And just in my reelection in 2020, where, the National Democratic Party came in big in Alaska, massive amount of money, Senator Murkowski was a strong supporter of mine, and we won that reelection very strongly. Look, we don't agree on everything, but we make a good team for Alaska.
So you support her.
And
you support her.
Yes. If Senator Murkowski runs again, I'm going to support her.
Okay. Thank you very much. Dan Sullivan of Alaska. Appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, John.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.